Hey guys, welcome to today's video, and today we're going to spend a little bit of time together in my kitchen while I do some meal prep and some batch cooking for the week ahead. Before we jump into the cooking part of today's video, if you're new to batch cooking, if you've never heard of it before, or you're not quite sure what it is exactly that we are talking about here today, there are lots of different descriptions of batch cooking, and it sort of covers everything from cutting vegetables and preparing them for later on and getting them into the freezer, and meal prepping and just cooking a whole heap of lunches and dinners and getting everything ready to go for the week ahead, cooking an entire week's worth of food all in one go, or even a month's worth of meals in one day. So once a month cooking freezer meals, that's all batch cooking. Basically, for me, batch cooking is anything that I can do in the kitchen that is going to help me save time down the tracks. Basically, I'm thinking about all the different ways that I can cook or prepare large quantities of food for the future. So that could be anything from as much as cooking all of your dinners for a month and getting them in the freezer, or it could be as little as cutting vegetables and preparing them for later on and get everything in between. In today's video, you're going to see me do a couple of different techniques that I use on a fairly regular basis. Today I'm going to make 2 soups, a risotto, and I'm going to prep some chicken. I'm going to make a potato soup that I'm going to make a double batch of. That's going to be enough for tonight's dinner, as well as give us some leftovers for the fridge, which is one of my favorite ways to batch cook. The other thing that I'm going to do is I am going to roast some pumpkin, and I'm going to make a pumpkin soup and a pumpkin risotto. So I'm going to use one main base ingredient, that would be the pumpkin, but I'm going to create 2 different meals at the same time, which is one of my favorite ways to batch cook. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare some chicken that I bought yesterday. I'm going to poach that and shred that, get that into family meal sized packs, as it was a bulk pack of chicken, and then I will have shredded chicken in the freezer ready to go on a night when I need that in a recipe. So I'm sort of halfway in front by having that chicken pre-cooked and shredded. So let's jump in and get into today's batch cooking session. Alright, we're going to start by poaching the chicken that we picked up yesterday. We grabbed 1.5 kilos of chicken breast, which has actually ended up being 5 chicken breasts. What we're going to do is poach these just in water and shred it, and then divide that up into about 500 gram bags. So we should end up with about 3 serves of chicken shredded and ready to go into meals. Alright, let's cover it. Alright, so we're going to bring that to the boil and then simmer it for about 15 minutes. And then we'll turn it off and just let that continue cooking in the hot water while we move on to our next job. Alright, next up we are going to roast up all of these pumpkins. These are homegrown, have come out of the garden, but we need to do something with them. There's been quite a few pumpkins this year, so we're going to roast these, and some of them are going to go into a pumpkin risotto, and some of them are going to go into a roast pumpkin soup, which is really super easy to make. While the chicken is cooking, we're going to start peeling and dicing this pumpkin. We do have our big container ready to go for all of the scraps. There's one thing when you're batch cooking is just to make sure that you have all of those things on hand. So we have a compost bin outside, so we have a big container ready to go with all of our scraps, and we're going to get the pumpkins roasting while the chicken is cooking. And I have my little friend here who's going to help me do that. All right, let's get started. Alright, well our pumpkin prep is done. We've ended up with a little bit more than what we could fit on all of the trays. So I'm going to just cook some in a pot and puree those up. That's our big bucket of stuff to go out to the compost. So now we're going to go and chuck these in the oven and let those roast while we move on to the next step. Alright, while we were cutting up the pumpkin, the chicken has finished poaching, so we're just going to pull that out of the hot water. Left-handed, not easy.
I've got a right hand, I can do it if you want.
Charlotte's offering to help. Okay, so we're going to pull these out, let them cool, and then I'm going to show you a really neat trick for shredding them really easily. But we are going to let them cool down.
They smell amazing. What? It's just in water and they smell amazing.
It is just in water. So we'll add all of the flavouring to this chicken later on. So most of what you'll see me do today, I'm not going to add a lot of flavour because that's going to give me flexibility on the days that we're going to use these to add whatever flavour we want. Alright, we have the pumpkins in the oven right now. They're roasting up. It's probably going to take 45 minutes to an hour. So while that's happening, we're going to let the chicken cool down so we can shred it. And we are going to make some potato soup.
I love potato soup.
Say it again.
I love potato soup.
So this is a really simple potato soup recipe. It's literally just potato and chicken stock to cook with, and then we serve it with sour cream and crispy bacon. And it's also really good as a base to use to thicken up casseroles and stews and things like that, because it literally is just potato and chicken stock. So I picked up 2 bags of potatoes yesterday from Aldi. They were $3.50 each. We're going to cut up an entire bag, so 2 kilos of potatoes for this potato soup. But it is literally going to make a huge pot full, and it's only going to cost us a couple of dollars. And we usually get a lot of serves out of this, so this is going to be enough to feed our family for 2 full meals. So let's get started cutting up the potatoes.
I love the soup with crispy bacon.
The crispy bacon on top is a bit of a winner, isn't it? All right, let's get into it.
And when you mix it.
And when you mix it. Okay, our potatoes are all chopped up. Next step is to completely cover them with chicken stock. I'm going to use chicken stock cubes, so I'm going to fill this with water and throw in probably 4 or 5 chicken stock cubes, and then we just need to bring it to the boil, turn it down to a simmer and let it simmer for about 30 minutes or until those potatoes are completely cooked through. Once they're cooked, then we are just going to blend it with the stick blender, and that is pretty much it. It is ready to go into the freezer at that point. So let's fill this up with water and get it on the stove top. And while we've got the potato soup cooking, I'm going to cook up the rest of the pumpkin that didn't fit on the trays that I'm going to turn into a puree and store in the freezer for later on. So I'm going to get both of these things happening at the same time, which is one of the things that I really like to do with batch cooking. I either cook similar things at the same time, so if I'm going to do a soup, I'll try and do 2 similar types of soup, or I do a big batch of similar ingredients like the pumpkin soup that I'm going to cook and the pumpkin risotto, because they both use a roasted pumpkin. And today we're hitting the jackpot. We're doing soups and risotto, and we're getting all sorts of things cooked up. So let's get these soups on and then we can start shredding the chicken. All right, now soups are cooking. While they are cooking, we are going to shred the chicken, which has been pre-cooked and has cooled a little bit. You do want to let it cool down a little bit before you do this, but don't do it cold. So cool down a little bit, but not cold. And I'm going to show you the easiest way to shred chicken. If you've been shredding chicken with a fork, you need to stop doing that and shred it with your beaters.
I've got a question. How do you shred?
How do you shred chicken with some beaters?
Yeah.
Well, let's go and do it. This is our container of shredded chicken. What I will do is divide this up into probably 3 bags of just shredded chicken, 500 grams each, and they're going to go straight into the freezer. And then I have cooked shredded chicken that is ready to go later on down the track when I do actually have a recipe in mind for these. Now at this point I don't. I just like to have ingredients on hand, and this is one of the things I do like to have on hand. And I like to use shredded chicken because I find that it goes further in the recipes. Because it's shredded, everybody gets a little bit and it makes them feel like they've got their fair share of chicken in their dish. But it can make 500 grams of meat go a lot further. So by shredding it, it makes it appear like it goes further in the dishes, which makes everybody happy, but it also means that I can feed our family a little bit less and save a little bit of money, because instead of just doing 2 dishes, I'm actually going to make it do 3. So $5 worth of chicken into a dish isn't so bad in the long run. So I'm going to go get this in the fridge. And we're going to have a little break while our pumpkin is roasting and our potato is cooking. All right, this is our extra pumpkin that didn't fit on the trays that we are just going to mash up and turn into a puree that we're going to just chuck straight into the freezer as is. And then we will have mashed pumpkin to use later on. All right, our pumpkin is roasted. Half of this is going to go into a pumpkin risotto, and the other half we're going to use to make a butternut pumpkin soup. So that is going to be the next stage of our cooking. I'm going to let these cool down a little bit while we finish off the potato soup that we started earlier. Now that our potatoes have finished cooking, I'm just going to blend it together to make a puree with the stick blender, and that is pretty much the basis of our potato soup. Alright, that is pretty much all blended together, and it's actually quite thick. If it is a little bit runny, if there's a little bit too much water in it, I just will simmer it for a little bit longer with the lid off, let it reduce down a little bit, but that's actually a pretty good consistency there at the moment. So we're going to let this cool down and divvy it up into containers to put into the freezer, and we might even have a little bit of this for dinner, I think. Alright, next up I'm going to get that roast pumpkin soup happening. Again, this is a really simple way to make a vegetable soup. I'm just going to use 500 mils of chicken stock, So in this case, it's going to be 500 mils of water and 2 chicken stock cubes. And I'm going to put in about half of that pumpkin that I roasted, and then just blend it together. And that is a really simple soup. And this system of a vegetable and chicken stock is the basis for a lot of my vegetable recipes. So that's how I make potato soup, it's how I make sweet potato and red lentil soup, it's how I make roast butternut pumpkin soup, it's how I make cauliflower soup. It's pretty much the formula that I use for all of my soup bases. And then what I do is I garnish these soups when we go to have them. So when we go to have the potato soup, we're going to top it off with crispy fried off bacon, some sour cream and some chives. We're going to serve it with some lovely crusty bread or some toast, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. Really, really simple, really easy to put together, but amazing. And the flavors really do come out of how you've cooked the vegetables. So the flavors that's going to come out of this butternut pumpkin soup is going to come because we've roasted it off in the oven, and it's going to have a delicious, almost caramelly type flavor to it. It's going to be spectacular. All right, so let's get that pot happening and blended while we have the stick blender out, and then we can clean all of that up and put it away. And that is another thing that I love about batch cooking, is that we're using those appliances, or we've got them out, we're going to do a couple of different things with them and then do one big cleanup, and it makes things so much easier later on down the track. So let's jump in, let's finish off our second soup for today, and then we're going to get on to that risotto. All right, we're going to get this roast pumpkin into the pot. All I've done is bring that water to the boil, dissolved the chicken stock cubes in there, and now we're going to fill it up with some pumpkin. So Charlotte, do you want to, that pumpkin's cool, so you can just start getting that in the pot. All right, we are going to finish up today by getting our pumpkin risotto in the pressure cooker. So again, another really easy, simple thing to do. And I really believe that if you have multiple appliances and things like that, use them to your advantage. So while the big pots on the stove have got the soups in them, we're going to put our risotto in the pressure cooker. It's also a really easy way to cook risotto. If you want to do this recipe on the stovetop, or if you want to do it baked in the oven, it works just as well. I'm a bit partial to the pressure cooker because I really do like to really dump everything in the pot, set and forget, and just let it do its thing. So Charlotte and I are going to go and get the last of the roasted off pumpkin in here. We're going to get some chicken stock, and we're going to set this thing to go. And then when it's finished cooking, we're just going to stir through a few of those last ingredients, and we will have risottos ready to go for lunches in the fridge. Well, here is our pumpkin soup ready to go into the freezer. I just let it cool a little bit more before I put the lids on, but we've got 6 really thick serves, so we have a couple of options of what we can actually do with this soup, which is one of the reasons why I really like to keep the soup very basic and the flavors very simple. So we have tons of options. We could just have this as soup. It could be a really thick, very filling soup. The other thing we could do is actually thin this out a little bit more, perhaps add some cream to it, make it a creamy pumpkin soup, and then it would serve 2 people. Or it could be used as a base for some curries, or used to thicken up stew and add extra veggies in a way that helps create the meal and thicken it up, but also sneaky as well. So you're not having big chunks of vegetable, particularly those vegetables that some people don't like, and we do have a few people in our house that don't love pumpkin. So pureeing it like this and getting it in the freezer gives us a ton of options of how we can use this later on down the track, which I love. So part of my philosophy when I batch is that I batch to a point where it makes it a lot easier for me to use those ingredients and things later on down the track, but I'm not necessarily locked in all the way with everything that I cook. Some things I am, but some things like this and like the multi-purpose mince that I like to make and a few other recipes, I really like having that flexibility of being able to use it in multiple different ways later on down the track in different recipes. So this is our pumpkin soup. It is ready to go into the freezer. Next up, I'm going to start dishing up the potato soup that we are going to have for dinner tonight, but we're also going to have leftovers that are going to go into the fridge. We'll probably have some of those tomorrow, but we're also going to get those into the freezer. And that pumpkin risotto, which is still cooking at the moment, but I'm going to get those into containers and have some of those in the fridge for lunch and some of those in the freezer for lunches later on down the track. So I think that's pretty much going to be it for today. We'll probably do a little bit more tomorrow as well. Alright, what's the verdict, Charlotte?
Good.
Oh, we got a thumbs up from Daddy too. Alright, here is our pumpkin risotto ready to go in the fridge and the freezer. So we've cooked the risotto with the pumpkin, stirred through a little bit of baby spinach and topped with some cheese. And then when we go to reheat, if we want to add any extra, add some shredded chicken or some walnuts or something like that to the top, we can throw them in on the day. But that pumpkin risotto has given us 8 serves, and they're pretty big serves. And hey, if you want to get started with batch cooking, if you're interested in some of the recipes that you've seen here today, I have a free quick start guide for you over on my blog. It's free to download, and in it you'll find all of my best tips and tricks to get started with batch cooking, all of the things that we've found really helpful and successful. Plus, I've included all of my favorite batch cooking recipes, including a lot of the recipes that you have seen here today in today's video. You can download it for free over on the blog at nikkibeale.co/batch cooking basics. I'm going to leave a link to that down below in the description. Oh, and don't forget, if you did enjoy today's video, if you found it useful, if you could please give it a thumbs up to let me know. I would really appreciate that. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below if you would like to stay up to date with all of my latest content. I do have heaps of new videos in the works for you guys, and I would love for us to be able to hang out a little bit more. I hope to see you in my next video.